Great to see you, Anthony. How's it going today?
I've been eclipsed.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's Anthony Melchiori. I'm Glenn Hausman. And now that we've been eclipsed, we got some special magical powers here on the show, don't we?
Yeah, we've been eclipsed. So where were you when you saw the eclipse?
On my driveway.
You have the eclipse glasses on?
Well, here's what happened. I didn't have eclipse glasses. And I didn't realize that by us, we'd have such, it was like 85% coverage or whatever you call it. I don't know what the medical term is for it there. But what happened was I didn't realize it until last minute. So my mom gave me her glaucoma glasses. And then I matched that up with my sunglasses and quickly realized that my retinas were going to burn out. But then my wife had gotten some from her school and showed up at home just in time. And I was able to knock that thing out. It was beautiful.
I was coming over the bridge where I live, and I looked up through my sunroof, and I literally saw, without damaging my eyes, I saw exactly what I was supposed to see, exactly when I was supposed to see it. But I only saw it for a second because then I needed the glasses to look any further because I wasn't in my car anymore. But everyone has an eclipse story. And listen, and people who've seen the Northern Lights. Have you ever seen the Northern Lights?
It's a bucket list for me.
I liked it. It's a little overhyped.
Right. Yeah.
I've seen them. Where have I seen them? I've seen them 4 different places, 4 different countries.
Yeah.
And they were all cool, but yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to see the Northern Lights next week when I'm at the Fish concerts at the Sphere in Las Vegas.
Are you going to see things at the Fish concert?
All right. So we're going to have a great guest today, and I want to get right to our amazing guest. But before that, I want to announce that Anthony and I are going to be delivering a keynote speech at High Tech on June 25th, all about technology and how it's changing hospitality and how we see the future going by pulling together all the different stakeholders in hospitality. That's going to be a really great one, Anthony.
We are doing it?
Yeah, man. We are.
It's exciting. And listen, it's one of the biggest conferences, and it's a honor to be asked. And I look forward to it. It'll be funny how, Abbott and Costello do, but we'll see.
Yeah. I wonder who's who.
You're definitely Costello. I'm definitely Abbott.
All right. Well, before we figure out who's on first, one of the things that we have to figure out in our industry is how to really keep marketing going forward. And I'll tell you, Anthony, a lot of that stuff seems same old to me. I don't really see how people are able to break through the din, particularly since so many hotels do a great job. So to walk us through this, we got Bruce Himelstein. He's an awesome marketer. He's with BJH Group. He's one of the, HSMAI's top 25 minds and lots of accolades, help reinvent Ritz-Carlton's customer service. All sorts of really cool stuff. How are you, man?
I'm phenomenal. I'm still I'm getting to the eclipse part. You guys remember when you were a kid, you got those X-ray glasses at the back of the comic book?
Uh-huh. Yeah, absolutely.
That's what I used. It didn't work well. I still had them, but anyway.
Well,
thank you for having me.
I said, get me the guy who designs everything in the world, who lives in West Palm, is semi-retired, and he has the coolest look ever. Get me a guy. I think.
Wow. Thank you. Central Casting. Thank you.
Exactly, Central. And he doesn't wear socks. So
I feel like you're waiting to try out for the Scorsese film right now in that room that you're in.
And listen, the picture of me on stage with Herman at the Forbes, I had no socks. You would not believe the grief I got online for not wearing socks. But sometimes you do what you got to do.
Listen, wear socks. It's funny. In all the formal and all the things I've done, I wear 2 different cufflinks, and only 5-star, really top of the line hotel guys or girls will realize it. no one else realizes I always wear 2 cufflinks. And people always ask me why. And I said, so you'll notice them. And it's only the highly detailed people that really, really notice that I wear different cufflinks.
That's very cool.
So I'm curious as to how socks or no socks and cufflinks affects your skills as a marketer, Bruce.
Well, I get that question a lot. It's
We've done 860 shows. That might be the funniest thing anyone's ever said.
It's Glenn. It's optics. It's all optics. Listen, you do what you got to do. I've learned that, and I learned this the hard way, that presentation sometimes is about 95% of what it is you're going to do.
Right.
So I've never lost that, for whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And, before we get into why don't we do this? 2 things. One, why don't you just give us your background real quick, and then I'll give you the follow-up question.
Okay. Upstate New York kid. Graduated SUNY Geneseo with a degree in communications, which, by the way, this is a bonus. Last week, I got a letter from the president of that school telling me I'm getting an honorary doctorate this year, and I'm speaking at commencement. So,
wow,
this is one of the more surreal moments of life.
Well,
anyway,
congratulations. That's really amazing.
Yeah, thank you very much. So I'm starting to write prescriptions, which my family's not very happy about, but it's okay. So I graduated with a degree in communications, couldn't find any work. I was living in Albany.
That's because you got a degree in communications, probably, right?
Well, yeah. And I was going to the city on weekends for interviews. And after 6 months of nothing, I applied to the Americana Inn in Albany, New York as a housekeeper. And I got hired. 2 days later, I got fired. I don't know if you're aware of this, but housekeepers have like a checklist of about 18 things that they have to do.
Right.
I used to average 2, 3.
Wow.
They want you to do all 18. But the GM loved me and asked me to stay on as a bellman.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was schlepping bags for tips, and the rest, as they say. So joined Marriott when they had 100 hotels in their national office in New York, in the Gray Bar building.
Mm-hmm.
And they had 2 hotels outside the United States, Barbados and Acapulco. And, 30 years later, that was an incredible career. They bought Ritz-Carlton. I got selected to go over to be the chief sales and marketing officer, and I did that role for about 8 years. Worked for John Tisch as his CMO at Lowe's for 4 years.
Wow.
Lived at the Regency Monday through Friday for 4 years while I commuted to Fort Lauderdale. And then decided to just do my own thing. The commute was killing me, quite frankly. And so I've been a consultant, speaker, and sit on a board or 2. And here I am.
So tell me a story that might get you arrested that has to do with Jerry and Zarello.
Oh, Lord. How long's the show?
Yeah, right.
Well, I'll give you one. I don't know to get him arrested or me arrested, but I'll give you 2 great Jerry stories. We both worked for Saul Kerzner, as you know, and I flew to London because Saul's offices were in London.
I'll say Kerzner is the company that developed properties such as Atlantis. Tune into the show we had yesterday with the managing director of the Atlantis Royal in Dubai. Bruce, please continue.
Yeah. So, and he had One and Only and Montagan in Morocco. So he was, a pretty deep hotelier and designer. So he picked me up at Heathrow in his Rolls, and Jerry was in the car with him. And the 3 of us were going to eat at a restaurant in London, and the phone rang. And in those days, it was the phone where you picked up in the coil.
Yeah.
But he put it on speaker. So now Jerry and I are listening. And it goes, Saul, listen, we've got it down to either the Bahamas or in Cabo. You tell us where you want us to have it. And Saul, who's a fairly gruff guy, said, I don't give a shit, you pick. Jerry, where do you want it? And he said, let's just do it in the Bahamas. All right, we'll do it in the Bahamas.
Wow.
Hung up the phone. I said, who, what? And they go, oh, that was Matt Damon. We're planning Clooney's surprise birthday party. That was Jerry's, still is, that was Jerry's universe. So he let me in for a little while. I got to experience that. So I've got a few of those stories.
Well, the Cindy Crawford and Sharon Stone were, let's just say, very physical with Jerry, and that's how I met Jerry. We went to Forbes travel thing, and I was like, "Is that Sharon Stone? And is that Cindy Crawford?" And are they lost? Is he lost in like a big like scrum of these supermodels?
Listen, they sent him to Saudi because of that. So who knows?
No, he's made. So no, it's so important because one of the things when I met you at the Forbes and I heard you speaking on stage, you had such a style and such a class, and you were funny, and you were one of those speakers that you can listen to all day long. So to me, you have all these experience. You probably have 3 or 4 decades of experience, but you still, to me, show up like you're 22 years old, just graduated college, and you're a very creative thinker. To this day, you think like a younger person. And I think what the rap we're getting is everybody's dumping all these younger people into a bin of they don't care. And all the old people are like, well, they don't care, so I don't care. And instead of being, I think we're like-minded in the sense of, listen, man, we're just people, and we're still 12 years old, and we're still creating, and things change. Nothing ever stays the same. And I got that vibe from you. And then when we hung out in the Delta Sky Lounge, I was like, oh, you got to be on the podcast. So how do you keep that mindset of flexibility?
That's a great question. I tell, I'm fortunate enough. I get invited to universities to speak, and that's one of my give backs. I don't charge schools when I speak, and I get the question similar to what you just asked, Anthony. But what I say is there's 2 lost arts: listening skills and eye contact. And if you're going to stand in front of me like this, you and I are done. And even if you're going to be in a meeting and this is how you're going to take notes, I'm done. So I like to engage. I don't put a parameter around that demographic or age group. I like to engage, and it keeps me relevant. I found, interestingly enough, that when I started my consultancy, very few of my clients are hospitality. They're in financial services and academia and healthcare. Because this intersection of hospitality and fill in the blank is, as you guys know, is just very relevant and very hot. So you drop the guest experience and you plug in patient experience, and now you got everybody's attention as to, well, how do we go from A to B with that? They don't look at the age when you start talking. They just listen to where that relevance is. So I'm at a pinch me moment of life and career where the phone keeps ringing, and I'm blown away by this stage of my life. But it's that reason is that you just stay engaged with people.
Right. So when you're staying engaged with all of these people, what are you revealing about how to connect better with others when it comes through the prism of hotel sales and marketing?
Well, a lot of them are in these silos. I get brought into the C-suite more often than I don't, and I've spoken to enough board of directors and meetings where, well, I'll give you a classic. I was in a board of directors meeting that I was asked to design and facilitate for the significant large healthcare organization in the Midwest, and they were all disengaged. And I said, look, I'm just going to ask you to put a number from 1 to 10 on a piece of paper. There was probably 25 of them. I said, rate the culture of your organization from 1 to 10, and 10 being outstanding.
Yeah, of course.
And don't put your name down. Just give me a number, fold it, and hold it up. And I collected them all. And then I said, what do you guys think the number is? Rate your culture. What's your number? And they guessed 4. The actual number was 3. And then we started talking why. And it's because they're more interested in hanging in their silos than they are collaborating. And when you do that, you're going to work in a 3 to 4 rated culture because everybody's doing their thing over there. I was with a group in New York last week that I can't talk about yet, but I will soon, that you all know. And, I asked them, with all the seats around the table in marketing disciplines, you got direct sales, you got digital, you got social media, you got PR, trade shows. When was the last time they all sat together around the table and looked at each other?
Mm-hmm.
And it had been over a year because Susie's over there doing social media. We got Bob, who's in Ohio, that does our PR.
Right.
Frank does the trade shows. He lives in Brooklyn.
Right.
I said, well, how do you get the brand right? How do you do that when you're all dispersed like that? So
it's more and more. And by the way, I have a gate that's high in my yard.
A what?
Did you get what I just said, Glenn? He said, tell me the name of the company, and I just said I have a gate that's high in my yard.
Yeah. Oh. Anthony, you know
That's
what?
Not it. That's not it.
Anthony.
Okay.
Anthony, I will tell you. I will say this. It reminds me of our conversation yesterday when you were talking to our guest about the stand-up meetings and the importance of having them every day, and what would happen if you didn't have them for months at a time. That's the exact same scenario that we're talking here, because, and I say this for our property level people to think a little bit differently. Bruce, I mean, if you're not there talking and understanding what the brand is on a regular basis, then you're all setting yourselves up for failure, right?
Well, and look, I used to take, and I do this with my clients now, I took 48 hours a year when I was a CMO, and I would bring my team offsite somewhere and lock them in a ballroom. And I would bring my agencies, but I would bring my colleagues, my peer group. So the head of ops, the head of HR, the head of IT, they had equal say at the table as we developed our business plan and marketing plan for the following year. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I brought all those guys in is because I could put the bow on the marketing plan, but they gotta animate it. They have to deliver it. So if I'm going after multi-gen travel because our owners are building more connecting rooms, because that's the trend, mm-hmm. They got to know that, and they got to help me on how we're going to deliver that.
Right. So
at the end of the marketing plan in the 2 days, I could stand in front of the CEO or the board and say, we did this, mm-hmm. Not me and my agency we did this, so that everybody could articulate what success looks like. And that, to me, is when the silos come down and you guys are all aligned. That's when you get RevPAR premiums, and that's when you get brand awareness premiums.
So how do we? Right now, we're all looking at our computer. We're all looking at our phones as soon as this is over. We've all become comfortable, kind of in our little silo. I still love communication. Like yesterday, I was in the city for a meeting, and I went over to my friend Joey Zadori's hot restaurant in the Village. And we had the greatest time, an hour and a half, eating spinach and shrimp and talking and bullshitting, and there's nothing like it. But one of the things that me and my friend Glenn are going to talk about at High Tech is how do you keep that personal connection, and everybody's talking about it, with AI is going to take over. It's going to go faster. Everybody's like, well, in 10 years, 12 months from now, we're going to oh my God, look where we are. How do you keep that emotional, personal connection when the world is being taken over by artificial intelligence and Zoom calls?
Well, we're fortunate that we're in an industry that embraces that, right? It's just part of our DNA. It's part of my DNA that I've got to, even though we're doing this because logistically it's hard. I could have flown to New York, I guess, or you guys could have come to Boca. But this is just the way it is now. Mm-hmm. But I think it's part of if you're going to be in the hospitality space, it's in your DNA to embrace relationships. And, I just signed up for the second annual Marriott reunion in November for all the guys that I grew up with that are no longer there. But there's a couple hundred people there. Yeah. We all made that a priority.
That's
right?
wonderful.
I sit down and have breakfast once a month with about 8 guys that I grew up with in Ritz-Carlton. That none of us are there anymore. We're all doing other things, but it's like a scene out of Curb Your Enthusiasm. We all get together and we yenter it up for a while, and it's the best.
And I will tell you, and I'm not saying Marriott, just in general, I'll just generalize the brands. They seem to be getting more and more, how can I say, minimized or more sanitized or more
Homogenized,
and
Yeah.
pasteurized.
pasteurized. And it just seems like there's no emotion, there's no heart. And everybody's afraid they're going to step on somebody else's toes and their stock options are going to be taken away.
I taught my kids. I have 3 girls. They're all grown now, but I taught them all.
I have 3 girls too.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm.
I said, look, you're a brand. The minute you graduate and you walk across that stage, you're a brand. And everything you do or say will add or detract from your brand equity, even though you haven't started a job yet. So fight for the shelf space. I spent all day Friday at Marriott with the luxury brand team on behalf of one of my owners.
Mm-hmm.
And they said to me, you're maybe one of the few people, ownership groups that have asked to come and meet. And I'm fighting for shelf space. There's 32 brands in that building, and there's 8,000 hotels around the world, and they've got 180 owners. But I knew enough of the relationship and the networking over the years that it's shelf space I'm looking for, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's up to me. That's my DNA. That's my relationship. So I just don't let go of that. I'm a collaborator at heart. I think I mentioned that earlier. It's not about me. It's about the collaboration and the output.
And I think we talk about this a lot, and I talk a lot about this in my keynotes, is I ask people, how many people in this room have a brand? And if there's 500 people or 5,000 people, maybe 1%, less than 1%, will raise their hand. And I always say, when you come out of the womb, your brand is established, right? Like when your kids were teenagers, your 3 girls, I have 3 girls, and my twins are 25, my baby's 21. And I can tell you which one was going to get an A in math, who was going to take out the garbage, who was good in volleyball. So your brand is already being established. I'll give you the perfect example of my brand, right? And kind of staying in your lane. I was asked to be on this hospitality podcast. And I asked Glenn, I said, should I be on it? He goes, yeah, it's a good guy to be on it. Then they called the publicist and they said, well, we want Anthony to be on, but we have to do a half-hour pre-call and talking about subjects and topics and kind of knowing what he wants to talk about. I said, yeah, I don't do that. I'm not doing it. I told the publicist, tell them I don't do that, but I'm happy to be on the call. And they canceled the call. And I'm like, you're letting me, you want me to go against my brand. Like, Bruce, did we do anything to prepare you for this call?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact,
hold on. Bruce. We had some conversation about bagels and some other really important stuff.
We did, but you committed that would be between us, and that clearly you've broken that.
I didn't. You see, now you know what my word is. I didn't sign anything.
The thing is, if I need to prep you for a live podcast about what you do for a living and what you've done for decades, then I'm not a good host. And I'm not saying he's not a good host. He's a great host. But if I did that, I'm going against my brand. Because my entire brand is, whether it be Hotel Impossible, 5-Star Secret, anything I've ever done, is everybody knows I just show up.
Mm-hmm.
I showed up 2 minutes before this podcast. This is how you get great content from people like us. If I have to think about what I'm going to say, it's probably not going to be a great podcast. So, but I love what you said to your daughters. It's like you're fighting for shelf space. That's a really good way of putting it.
Well, listen, there's and what they're going through, what they went through is certainly different than during our time when we started, putting the resumes out and distribution, hoping somebody would interview us. It's a different universe now.
That's why I did mine in a different shade of paper, so it would stick out from the pile.
Well, I'm sorry that didn't work out for you, but this seems to be going well.
Yeah, remember the days when you opened the New York Times and hoped on a Sunday there was a classified ad that had your name on it, right?
Yeah,
and then in the resume, and when you got the interview, you were excited. And if they offered you the job, you said, okay. And they said, sit there, don't move. This is what you're getting paid. And if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. And if I see you out of your seat for more than 30 seconds, I'm going to shoot you. Like, those are the good old days.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I remember there was I won't say who, you probably know his name. he was the CFO of a very famous hotel and then became a CFO of a big company. And I once gave a paid out that he told me I can give to the handler of the King of Morocco. And I gave him the paid out because he told me to give it to him. And then I guess he got in trouble with the GM or whatever. And those poles from the school, in school where you pull down the window, those long wooden poles.
Oh, yeah.
So he had one in his office. And as I walk into his doorway, he said, if you ever give another paid out like that again, I'm going to shove that where the sun don't shine. Your mother's going to feel it.
Oh.
So I look at him. And I've always been a little bit of I've always been very obedient, believe it or not, to my bosses. Very, very disciplined guy, but also a little bit of a tough guy. So I remember feeling really bad about what he said, but really scared of him. So I was walking out, and then my Brooklyn wouldn't let it go. And I turned around and I said, "Sir, I understand what you said. Just keep my mother out of it next time." And I'm like, but those are the days. Like today, you're in human resources. You're sued, and there's 4 generations that are going to have to pay the lawsuit.
That's hysterical. So those were the good old days, but so are these, Bruce. When I think about those silos, we were talking about just the departments, but one of the things that I'm trying to figure out is how we could break down the silos between all the different areas in our company. And Anthony and I are going to be talking about this on stage a little bit, but we don't think enough about all the stakeholders, like from the designers to the ownership, to who's going to operate it, to who's going to finance it, those kinds of things. Everyone seems to work on their own, let alone including food and beverage on anything. How do you think we could kind of pull all those together to create something that's more cohesive, that'll appeal towards both the customer community and the ownership universe?
Well, if you're talking about, the ownership universe is, it's going through a lot of flux, as it always has. But I'll just give you one anecdote, and then I'm going to answer your question.
Yeah.
I remember we were in Berlin one year for the annual owners meeting for Ritz-Carlton, and I shared the marketing plan for the upcoming year. And I had one of the GMs, it doesn't matter from where, raise his hand and say, wow, you know what? That's really good, but that's not going to work for us here in Timbuktu. Yeah. We're probably going to, we're going to do a version or something like that. And then another GM in the back of the room, or another owner in the back of the room, said, hey, I'm not sure I like that whole thing you're doing with the creative. So I got a buddy that owns a Kinko's. We're going to probably go down and, just do something. And my CEO at the time, I'll give him props, Simon Cooper, he came up to the stage and said, ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something. If I let 150 people do their version of Ritz-Carlton, we've just unbranded this thing.
Yep.
There's no wiggle room. Mm-hmm. Sorry, you don't get a vote. Here's the brand. It's a picture frame. You don't get to vote on the frame, but you can color in the picture, because Mother's Day brunch in Berlin is going to look a whole lot different than Mother's Day brunch in Battery Park. We get that, but you don't vote on the frame. You can do the middle, but that's okay. So if that concept makes sense to everyone, you can break it down to a unit level. I don't care if you're at a Courtyard in Poughkeepsie or you're at the New York Marquee in Times Square. When you sit around the table and you all decide what success looks like and how you're going to measure that, by the way. Otherwise, it's brochure copy, right? What are the metrics? How do we know we've done what we say we're going to do? What are the things we're going to all agree to look at to go, hey, we did it. We did it. Versus, hey, let's satisfy all of our guests.
Right.
Okay. Well, how's that happening? And how are we going to know if we've done that or not?
Right.
What's your role in doing that? So to answer your long-winded answer, I
love that story. Yeah.
But it's look, either you're going to participate in the brand or you're not. And if you want to fly your own flag, that's cool. Go get your own flag. But here's the flag we're flying today. And so that's who we all work for.
Yeah, and I think once you're in that frame, you can have a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Because the hard part is building the frame. Because almost nobody can build it, right? Almost nobody can build a sustainable brand. It's almost impossible. And when you do it, it's fun, right? It's fun to live within the frame, because now you know who you are. Like, even as a human being, right? Once you realize, whenever that is for you, I think it was me, the day I left the Air Force was the greatest day of my life, not because I left the Air Force, but because the Air Force gave me everything I needed to be who I wanted to be. And that was the day I was like, oh, okay, I know who I am, and I'm going to live within who I am. I'm not going to be outside that frame. And I think the same thing goes with the brand. And I think as a human being, when you find that, it's the most freeing thing in the world. So this is the time of the show we ask the most important question.
Oh, already for the most important question?
One question. We ask every one of our guests exactly this time at 30 minutes and 25 seconds. What is a moment where you did something to get a job, to get an appointment, to get a contract signed, get your wife, whatever it was that you did something that some people would say, wow, that was outside the lines.
Good question. But within the framework.
And anything that you did that was kind of, because today's day and age with the younger generation or any generation is that you got to go get it. You got to go fight for shelf space. And you don't fight for shelf space because no one's, by somebody knocking on your door, you got to go knock on the other. So what's the one thing that you did and it's like, oh shit, that worked?
When Marriott took over Ritz-Carlton, and I was fortunate enough to be selected to go into the role I got, we had to report out every quarter to Bill Marriott and his direct reports on how the brand was doing. And so it was the CFO, the CEO, and myself. And we would go into the chairman's boardroom and we would report out on a series of metrics. And at the end of the meeting, every time, he would look at me, Bill Marriott, and he would say, when are you going to get Ritz-Carlton into Marriott Rewards? Pre-Bonvoy, that's what it was called.
Right. And we should add, contextually, it was kept separate at first on purpose because it was a very different product than Marriott really had at the time, right?
Well, you're telling my story, Glenn.
All right. I'm sorry.
So he caught me by surprise when he asked the question. And I went back and did a little bit of homework and ran numbers that if we were part of Marriott Rewards, what would be the incrementality that we would get and would it make sense? And the numbers all came back negative.
Right.
Because we would get people from Courtyard that would save all year on the redemptions and then cash them in to stay 2 nights at Pentagon City. And so the numbers just didn't make sense. And again, the business model is the flags don't own the assets, right? Owners own the assets, different equity groups and blah, blah, blah. So I got away with that for maybe 2 years. And then one day when he asked me with such fire in his eyes that it was an oh my God moment for me personally. So I turned to my agency and I said, look, I want to create a program to where it is recognition based, not points based. Because in the world of luxury, at least in those days, people weren't staying at Ritz-Carlton, to your point, Glenn, people weren't staying at Ritz-Carlton to earn points.
Right.
There were no points to earn, but they were running the highest RevPAR in the markets they operated in because people wanted that level of service and they paid a premium to get it. They didn't look at oh, look, 2 more stays and I get to go to the Courtyard in Poughkeepsie. Nobody gave a shit about that stuff. So anyway, I met with the agency and probably 90 days later, we presented a program to the chairman. In the meantime, I said, find me a celebrity that is on their way up where I can barter and they can help me design a card. And we're going to come up with a new card that's optics only, but it's a card that they're going to feel like they have. And so I had just seen John Legend on the Grammys. This is 2003, maybe. And they arranged a meeting with John Legend and me at the Central Park South Ritz-Carlton Club Lounge. And he walked in by himself. He was just kind of getting going. And we bartered 3 vacations for him and his family. And he did some artwork for a card. And we called it the Cobalt card. Still exists today. And how you got a Cobalt card is you had to be an influencer. But we didn't use that term then.
Right.
We just said, give it to Ralph Lauren, give it to, and we had this Jamie Dimon, just give me a list of people that will get this card and I want it in a beautiful wooden box. I want their name engraved on it, send it to them. And here's what they get if they use it. They get their own phone number. They get a greeting from the general manager. They get an upgrade, blah, blah, blah. It was high perceived value, zero cost, other than the
Right.
box.
Right.
It worked. And I presented it to the chairman, and he loved it. And we did probably $10 million in incremental revenue that year tied to the card that cost nothing.
Wow.
That's my story.
So, what's the story within the story for a young person when they're faced, and we've all, if you've been living long enough and you've been successful long enough, we've all been faced with the fire in the eyes boss, and you pee down your leg and then you go figure it out. And what steeled you for that moment? I'm not going to give in, but I can't give up because then I'm not going to have a job. So what made you say, I got to do something, but I got to be me. I got to be creative. Like what?
I put no parameters on my creativity. Just think big. They can knock me back.
Mm-hmm.
They can say no, but I'm just going to keep coming, because in my heart, I knew that putting that brand into that platform, the owners would revolt.
Yeah.
So why go through all that heartache? Let me come up with something creative with my agency, by the way, who deserves a ton of the credit for doing this. But then I got the support from the leadership within Ritz-Carlton. I said, let me dry run this with you before I go to the chairman. And everybody was like, and listen, I said collaboration a few times during this call. I'm a huge believer in collaboration, and you got to link arm in arm on this stuff to make it work. And that's what we did.
Yeah. I always say, if I'm the smallest person in the room, you should leave the room. So,
That's exactly right.
He does say that right before leaving the room from me. But Bruce, I got a question for you. Yeah, we're talking about creative ideas, but how can someone orient their brain to think that way, be more creative, and not get caught up in repeating the same old stuff we've done over and over? Like, if you're going to take a picture and try to promote the spa, why do I have to see rocks on the back of a woman? Can we do something different?
That woman, by the way, just celebrated her 94th birthday.
She looks fantastic.
Yeah, she looks great.
Also, little known fact, she's also the same woman holding hands on the beach with that guy. So there's
that's right.
that one.
That's right. Again, you've got to be part of something. You otherwise just start off being a consultant with zero context. Right. I got lots of context, and I surround. Like Anthony just made the comment. You surround yourself with people that are smarter than you are, and then get out of their way. Mm-hmm. And I was very fortunate enough to surround myself with really smart, creative people. And we all felt ownership into whatever it is we were putting on the table. It'll never be bulletproof. It'll never be foolproof. And you'll make your mistakes, and that's okay. But you'll never challenge your creativity.
I was kind of famous for asking a question, right? So I walk into a room with really smart people after I typically changed the executive team, and I came on, because usually you don't call me unless everything's screwed up. You don't call me if it's a good hotel, because I'll screw it up. So I come in, and we change to the team that we think we want, and then I would come in after they kind of did what they were supposed to do, and I would always ask a question, and a lot of times people would say, every single time you ask that one question that we don't have the answer to, and I said, because I'm trying to justify my existence. Because the only thing that my job is to hire really good people, get out of their way, and ask them a question that maybe they weren't thinking about. If I do that, then I justify my existence.
The other filter, just to piggyback on that, is when I hired people to work on my team, the filter that I used, assuming all the references and all that stuff checked out, but the filter that I used is, would I put them in front of Bill Marriott and I could be on vacation and not worry about it?
Yep. That is a really, really, really good point. And I always say, I want them to present. I want to sit in the back. But I want to kind of go back real quick. I know we're running out of time, but something happened. I was in Madison Square Park yesterday doing some social media, and they sent me this new kid, 23 years old, and they kind of warned me, because everybody knows I can be a little salty sometimes if I don't think people are doing a great job. And he was a good kid. We did a good job. And actually, we walked into the Edition right outside of Madison Square Park. And when we walked in, he's like a 23-year-old kid with his hat on backwards with his cameras. and he's walking in and he's taking pictures. Like, dude, you have to go incognito. Like you can't do that. And he's like, no, it's fine, whatever. And he's taking the pictures, and I'm like scared they're going to throw me out. And I'm looking for a manager to see if he recognizes me. I put my face out there to see if he recognizes me. Nobody recognized me. Anyway, we took pictures. I liked the kid. And this morning I'm having a meeting with my producers, and I said, yeah, he was a good kid. And they told me a story, and I said he's going to be very successful because he doesn't really seem that he understands boundaries, and he's just going to do what he wants to do. And he went to a concert, some kind of singer, rapper, and with cameras, and he went up to him as he was getting on stage. He goes, "Hey, I'm here to shoot for you." He goes, "Okay, good." So he thought he was there officially. So he got on stage, shot for him, everything. The next day, somehow he got his email. The next day, he said, like 6 o'clock in the morning, sent him like 10 videos of the show he just shot. The guy hired him and brought him all around the world shooting.
Amazing.
Right? Now, this kid's 23 years old, and he's been around the world shooting with a rapper just because he faked it till he made it. Right?
That's a great story.
Successful. And kind of, I don't know how many times I have to say that on this show and everywhere else, is no one's looking to give you shit.
Yep.
Nope.
Yep.
Nope.
You got that right. Bruce, we got a question. Bruce Almighty, if you were to give an award to somebody, what was it for and who would it be? Any mentors maybe besides Jerry?
Oh, that's a good question.
You mean after my wife? For putting up with this career?
Yeah, they're outside the category of tolerance we're talking. Yeah.
I would say the guy's name is Mike Levin. And I don't know if you know the name, but Mike Levin. I just
interviewed Mike Levin on Monday for something I'm working on, as a matter of fact.
So Mike Levin, when I was the bellboy at the Americana Inn, was the president of Americana Inn. And he was doing a property visit. And I was assigned his bellman. I was his bellman. And there was an all-employee meeting that he was addressing. And I sat in the back of the room. And you know, again, I'm heading towards a broadcasting career. I'm in a bellman suit with a 4-year degree for dollars. So I'm watching the president of Americana because I have to be there. 30 minutes later, I said, I'm going in the hotel business. And now that was 1977. 2006, I'm the global chairman of Hospitality Sales and Marketing Association, and we're at the annual Adrian Awards at the New York Marquis, 1,000-person black tie.
Yep.
And I'm giving out the award to the man of the year, Mike Levin. And I'm the one, I'm going to choke here. I'm the one introducing Mike Levin. And at that point, he was Sid Edelman's number 2 at Sands Corp in Vegas. And so I was saying words about Mike, and I ended with, by the way, Mike, I love you, but you never tipped me. And he came on stage, gave me a big hug, and then pulled $1 out of his wallet. And by the way, we're having breakfast next week. We get together often. He's a neighbor down here. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I got to interview him once when he was running Las Vegas Sands in Vegas. I got to interview him at a bagel shop. Why did bagels keep coming up in this conversation today?
Well, look who you're talking to, dude.
I know.
Those are the moments.
Levin, Himelstein,
listen, those are the moments. I remember walking into the Algonquin Hotel, and I had the idea for the show called Hotel Impossible. And the agent, whoever we were hired, said, hey, Mark Summers will take a meeting. Now, you know Mark Summers, Bruce?
Nickelodeon?
Nickelodeon, right. So, and Food Network, and now off Broadway in his own show. And the guy's a legend. So I walk in, and we didn't do a deal because him and his partners were having issues. But he looked at me 20 minutes in, looks at me, and he goes, I don't know if we're going to be able to do a deal, but you will be on television. And if you know him, he is not a guy that gives out a lot of compliments, and he is a son of a bitch sometimes. I love him to death, but he's tough. And I didn't know that at the time. Now I know that. And he said to me, you will be on television. And I'll never forget that, because as soon as he said that to me, I felt like I owed it to myself, not to him, to do what he said I have to do. And I did it, and we did it for a long time. We're still doing it. But it takes those moments. Like you said, I never wanted to be on TV, never wanted to be famous, none of that. But I said, I want to teach the hotel business. I want to tell people how great this business is. Kind of like your story about I was going to be, on the radio, and then all of a sudden I'm introducing the CEO, and I'm in the hotel business. And the same thing. It's just like, it just takes that one. And I always say to people, don't look for big speeches. Look for a word or look for a sentence. And that sentence that may be fleeting, that person didn't even realize they said it, can guide you for the rest of your life.
Very true.
Yeah, I love it. Anthony, maybe we should do a TV show, like another spinoff, like NCIS Hotel Business or something like that. We could go around, solve crimes.
The only thing is I'll drive and you have to jump over the hood of the car like Starsky and Hutch.
Oh, that'd be great. They could jump the cars like the Dukes of Hazzard, but I'm not allowed to show or not.
Well, Bruce, just so you know, with the last generations is going to have references because everybody's watching their own shows and nobody understands references anymore.
Well, one day it'll just be like, yeah, TikTok.
Right.
Bruce, my kid said to me the other day, they're all adults, they're all watching The Sopranos. Like, do you ever watch the show called The Sopranos? And I was like, really? Like every single person would be watching that show at the same time, and you couldn't stream it. You couldn't watch it.
Right. Listen, when Schindler's List came out, I got the letter. I had to go see it. You had no choice. I get it. So, Bruce, how can we learn more about what you do and connect with you at BJH Group?
Well, my website, thebjhgroup.com. You're more than welcome, anyone, to take a look there. And I work with all the major speaker bureaus, and thankfully my consultancy is a bit tapped out, but I welcome anybody that's watching this, listening to this, to go on my website. I'd be pleased to hear from them.
So awesome. Let me ask you a question. Do you have your full load of New Yorkers in Boca now?
We do. They are planning to come back up here now, I would think.
Well, Anthony, it's gotten to the point when we moved here, it's like, where are you from? Oh, now it's, what part of Long Island were you in?
Yeah. Yeah. And we have, Bruce and I have a Comac connection here. I don't know, Long Island as well.
Bruce, thank you for saying you from upstate New York. I don't like when people say I'm from New York and they say where, and they say Buffalo, and go, that doesn't count.
No.
Yeah. If you say New York, I have a lot more respect for you.
Proud of it.
Well, at least someone got respect for you today, Bruce. Maybe next time when you come back, we'll be there. Bruce, you are amazing. I say this for real. Thank you so much. And we've got to have you come back real soon and educate us more.
Or you want to talk about something, hit me up and you'll get right on.
Great. Yeah. Well, guys, thank you for having me. It means a lot. I'm grateful and appreciative of your time.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much. And hey, listen, one thing we'd appreciate of you is why not download the audio version of the show? Get your podcast wherever you get your shows. We are there right for you. And if you're listening to us right now, and very happy you were able to follow that dog around the neighborhood, then why not watch us sometime? Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, NoVacancyNews.com. That's where you could find us. Great seeing you. We'll be back today.
For zipping through his straw. I've never done that before.
All right, so next week, Anthony and I are going to be in Las Vegas at the top of the week. We're going to be interviewing Todd Avery Lenahan, who runs design and development for those guys. We're going to be running that next week. I'm going to be seeing some concerts next week in Vegas, so we'll have a couple of pre-recorded shows as well. So remember, everybody, you got one life, so blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
See you soon.